It is Monday, September 17th, and it's episode 3 of this. Oh, 4,
Episode
Johnny.
4.
Episode 4 of the Sports Lodge podcast, and it was a crazy week, John. It's NFL football, week 2. We're recording this Monday morning because that's what we're going to do now. We're thinking the Monday, Thursday schedule for these Sports Lodge podcasts. So we're going to get them out and hopefully be pretty consistent for you guys, and it was another crazy week of NFL football. I'm just so happy football's back in our lives. Week 2 did not disappoint. There was storylines all over the field. But maybe let's start with one off the field, John, as something that I've never seen in my entire life watching football happened. Vonte Davis retired at halftime. Quarterback for the Buffalo Bills decided he was going to take his ball and go home after just getting destroyed in the first half by Phillip River and the Chargers. Johnny, I've never even heard of anything like this before. Have you?
This was the strangest thing to me. I didn't hear this, honestly, until the end of the day. I was out and about. I watched a couple games at my buddy's place, but I wasn't too plugged into what was going on in the NFL, and especially what was going on in the Buffalo Bills Los Angeles Chargers game, because really, who cares? But this is really one of the most interesting stories that has come out of the NFL in a little bit, because, yeah, like you said, this has never happened before. Davis, a veteran from Indianapolis,
Yep.
he came over. He signed a 1-year contract here, and then he released after doing all this, he released a statement saying that he likes to play at a high level, and I'm giving you the cliff notes
Yeah.
here, but
It
he
was a
likes to
long
play at a high
statement.
level, and he realized at halftime or just before halftime that he could not play at that level anymore. He had a pretty much a come to God moment. This is a very religious man, and he was very honest with himself on the field. This is how he explained it, and he said to the coaches the exact same thing. He came off the field, he went in his street clothes, and he retired at halftime. It did not sit well with the club. But this is a trend we're seeing where people are now walking away from this very hyper physical sport at more appropriate ages, rather than sticking around to become a heavy bag to be hit when you just can't move around like the rest of the league does.
Yeah, I think it's easy to walk away when you've made as much money as a guy like Vonte Davis, who's been around the league a little bit. I very much agree with the sentiments just by his teammates post game, especially Lorenzo Alexander, who basically just chewed him out, basically said it was something he'd never seen before in football. It was completely disrespectful to him and the coaching staff and basically everybody who prepared all week as a Buffalo Bill to take on the Chargers, and to walk away at halftime. Look, I get it. You're trying to be honest with yourself, I guess, and you're trying to say, okay, I can't play at this level anymore, but you committed to these guys, if not for the year, but for this week at least, and the fact that you couldn't even get through it, he was just getting torched so bad, and nobody was watching this football game. I don't. The only reason it came on my TV at all was the fact that we're stuck up here, and that's just our regional rights, as we get stuck with these shitty AFC East games with the Dolphins and the Jets playing each other, and then the Bills and the Chargers that nobody in their right mind cares about. But Vonte Davis walks away. I get his statement. Whatever. He's going to try and concede. I fully expect him to get the itch and be back on a football field soon. It probably won't be with the Buffalo Bills. I can't ever imagine him being welcomed back into that locker room, John. He quit on his guys. He quit on his team. He quit on himself. And honestly, John, it wouldn't surprise me if the league kind of blackballed him after something like this. I don't think coaching staffs, players, just to have to deal with this type of nonsense, and to have a guy who is already thinking about retirement and not thinking about being the best he can be, and then to quit on his teammates like that at half. It sucks for his teammates and for Bill's Mafia, but I'm sure they were so drunk at halftime that most of the fans had no idea until they got
Yeah,
home.
they probably didn't even recognize that he wasn't on the field anymore.
No.
Other than the fact that, hey, we're scoring points and they stopped scoring as much.
Yeah, they
Um,
let off the
uh,
gas.
yeah, I mean, I don't know where I go with this whole Davis thing. I understand that he's definitely blackballed himself. from probably getting back in the league. And I would think that there's some sort of contractual sort of legality where if he decided to retire from one team and then come back the very next or the very same year, you wouldn't be able to come back to another team other than the team you were already signed to. I don't know the specifics, but I would think that there's something built in like that.
Like that's just how contracts work, right?
Right. So, yeah, I think he's blackballed himself though. But the same can be said for any player who's decided to just walk away from the game in the middle of a season, unless they're a star player, right? Unless it's someone like with a name who holds a little bit of weight and has some success behind them, then they probably would be welcomed back into the fold more than someone who just walks away mid-season, no matter what. Mid-game's way worse. Don't get me wrong, but.
Yeah, it's just the mid-gameness that's so weird, and it's why this story's really at the top of most headlines. It's why we figured we should lead with it. But I got nothing more to add to it. Vontez
Yeah, I was going to say,
like whatever. Davis, if he doesn't want to play football, he doesn't want to play football. Wish him all the best in retirement. There's 1,000 guys going to be vying to take his job. I don't think the Buffalo Bills are going to be too concerned. And it's not like they were going to win anyway.
Yeah, next man up in line is going to be very happy.
Speaking of now free agents, I'm pretty sure sitting on the couch, Dan Bailey might be the happiest man in America after watching some of these football games yesterday, John. I went through, and SB Nation did a good job. They actually listed every single missed kick from the NFL yesterday, and including PATs missed and block kicks, there was a total of 18 missed field goal and extra point attempts yesterday in the NFL. And with these guys getting paid so much money, it was just comical. And there was a couple games that was really highlighted. Let's start with the tie in Green Bay against the Vikings, where Mason Crosby missed a field goal at the end of regulation. He had an opportunity to give the Packers a win, but Mike Zimmer called the timeout and froze him. A long kick from 54 yards. Okay, you missed a 54-yarder, I get it. He misses a second one in overtime, a chance to give the Packers a win. I thought it was over. I actually turned away from the game because I thought Mason Crosby was just going to kick this field goal in overtime and the Pats Jaguars game was starting. So I was leaving. But more importantly, the Vikings rookie kicker missed 3 field goals yesterday, 2 in overtime, and it just destroyed the Vikings. He cites lack of confidence post-game. But John, if you're a playoff Super Bowl aspiration team like the Minnesota Vikings are, where you think you've gone out and fixed your problems at quarterback, your defense is one of the best in the NFL, you have all these threats at wide receiver and running back, and then your kickers costing you football games, they must just be losing their mind in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge question mark, especially when that's really the least thought about position. I mean, you think that so long as the O line is sturdy enough and the snap is good, this guy's going to make the kick so long as it's within an acceptable distance, because that's what we've expected to see over years and years and years. But the last few years, it's gotten more difficult for these kickers, and I mean, it's great for Dan Bailey, but I think it's even great for if you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they replaced Dan Bailey with a Canadian Football League kicker.
Yeah, I forget his name.
I think it's Canna or something. Or
he kicked ball good yesterday.
Yeah, he kicked the ball good yesterday,
yep.
And that's what I think is good news for is guys in this in another league, right? Like, so if the guys in the NFL can't do it, and the Cowboys have proven they can go to the CFL and grab a guy who can. Maybe other teams will follow their lead and go do the same thing, grab a couple of these guys who are just laying around making 10, 25K a year to come make 200K a year.
Yeah, right. You normally see that, I guess, just because there's so many goddamn kickers. Like, just every college football team has a kicker, right? And 4 get drafted a year, maybe, right? There's just so many guys who have played, and you don't necessarily see them go into the CFL. But I had no idea, actually, that story. That story has not been promoted at all up here. The fact that there was a Canadian League kicker came in and took the spot of Dan Bailey, one of the greatest kickers, one of the most accurate kickers in the history of the NFL. And this guy from the CFL just shows up and takes his job, and nobody's even talked about it. But hey,
it's mostly about money. That's the thing.
I guess so, right? Dan Bailey's, but he's gonna command some money because guys are missing kicks, and Aaron Rodgers did all he could to play on one leg, and he looked great, yada, yada, yada. But the Minnesota Vikings should have won that football game, and they didn't because of their kicker. And Fuck, it's tough, John. He's a rookie. You're trying to let him grow, but you're in a win now team in the Minnesota Vikings. I just don't know how much longer you can rely on a guy who hasn't been making kicks. And it sucks, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, just ask the Tampa Bay Buccaneers how they felt last year.
Right? Exactly. Like when
Or,
you're
well, the last, 10 years anyway.
it's just such an important position, and it I know Minnesota's had problems at kicker before. I forget it's blanking on me right now. The guy who was their kicker before, this rookie who's got a weird name, so I'm not even pronouncing it. But he had issues too. So it's tough in Minnesota. It's a tie. It's gonna make everything weird in the NFC North. So now there's ties in the AFC North and the NFC North as we look way down the line in playoff seeding. It's going to be a bit of a clusterfuck, but we'll get and deal with that when and where we have to. Speaking of missed kicks, because that's going to be really our transition to everything here on this episode, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns for a second, John, because I honestly thought they were going to win another football game here. I thought they had the Saints on the ropes. They were playing really well defensively. I don't know if you saw that 4th and 5 throw from Tyrod Taylor for that touchdown at the end of the game, but it was one of the prettiest throws you'll ever see in your entire life. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Go find the highlights, because this thing is a fucking dime right into a breadbasket at the back of the end zone, and it's just so gorgeous. But so they're leading against the Saints for most of the game, but when your kicker misses 2 extra points and 2 field goals and you lose by 3 points, that's on you. That's a tough day in Cleveland, and they had a real opportunity to start the season 1-0-1, and somehow I think they probably would have, actually I know they would have found themselves in the lead in the AFC North, but they find themselves losing a game, and I don't know if it's more on the Saints than it is the Browns, Sean, just because how bad New Orleans has looked at home in the first 2 weeks, but Cleveland misses kicks, and it costs them a football game, and it's just a tough time to be a Cleveland Browns fan, but I feel like we've been saying that a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough time to be a Cleveland Browns fan. I looked at my NFL app, and it was 8.5, maybe 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Browns were up 12-3. I looked at my buddy, and I was like, oh my God. They're
like that game
do
wasn't on TV anywhere. Like
No.
I don't even know if they televised it, but it was crazy just to see.
If it was
right?
on TV, I'm gonna be honest, I would have turned it on. I would have gone right to my TV.
For
I would have
sure.
found it and watched it. And yeah, I'm gonna have to look up that Tyrod Taylor pass. But week after these last 2 weeks now, we have done something that we have never done in the last 6 years of NFL talk. And I haven't known you for that long, but I know we've both been talking NFL for 6 years to random people. We've been talking about the Browns in the first 2 weeks. And we're not talking about how bad they are, really. Yeah, they've had a little bit of ineptitude at kicker, but they've been in both games, is my thing. Right?
Oh, yeah, no, this is very respectful for the Cleveland Browns.
Pause.
What's up?
You're really fuzzy.
I'm fuzzy. How am I doing?
Super fuzzy. It might be me. I don't know. Wait, try it now.
When did I get fuzzy?
Speak. You're good.
When did it start, Johnny?
Maybe a minute ago. It wasn't very long in. That's why I paused you right away.
Wait, you paused me right away, or you paused?
Yeah, like I told you to stop. I told you to stop when it happened. So it's like a minute ago.
Okay. Do you know where we were? Like when you first heard it?
Oh, frig. I
That's
can't remember what we were just talking about,
it's
to be
all right.
honest.
So I can transition out of it. So Cleveland lost.
Oh, yeah, no, we were talking
about... No, yeah, we were talking about Cleveland the Saints, yeah.
Or good,
so it's
sorry.
okay, but
so wherever I started saying, right when I started saying we've both been talking NFL for 6 years, that's when it started to get fuzzy.
All right. Yeah, okay, so we'll just...
So we can move on.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we're done with Cleveland. How do I want to do this then? Okay. Yeah, okay. So we'll just stay in the AFC North then, and we'll talk the Patrick Mahomes Pittsburgh game.
All right.
Okay, ready?
Here we go.
Yeah, Cleveland just not good. And it's tough for Cleveland. I think they're going to get it together eventually, but if they don't have a kicker, and I really just don't like Hugh Jackson as a head coach, but despite shooting themselves in the foot, the Cleveland Browns have been in a couple football games here, and I think the beer fridges are going to open this year in Cleveland for sure. Let's stay in the AFC North here, Johnny, and let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Le'Veon Bell. James Conner continues to be filling in very admirably at tailback for the Steelers, but just not enough as Patrick Mahomes, the man, the myth, the legend, goes off for 6 touchdowns yesterday against the Steelers. And damn, it was impressive to watch, John. This guy's just slinging the rock all over the field. Just seems like endless weapons on Kansas City. And a decision that I wasn't quite sure of when they moved on from Alex Smith, just because I didn't know what Patrick Mahomes was going to be. But Andy Reid and company has proven proven to everybody that they know what the hell they're up to, as this kid is just a monster in his first 2 weeks as an NFL starter.
Yeah, 10 touchdowns in your first 2 weeks. And, I don't want to hammer on the touchdowns too much, but what's more impressive than all those TDs, only 5 incompletions in the whole game, Joey. Mm-hmm. He's 23 for 28. And in comparison, Roethlisberger was 39 for 60. Like this kid, he's the real deal, and you can understand why the Kansas City Chiefs has moved on from the dink and dunk offense of Alex Smith to the drive and I don't know, it's like huge deep passes.
Explosive. And this kid just throws the ball so hard too, right? Like he's just wiring these things in there, and they're so accurate. It's he's hitting guys in stride, but throwing the ball 90 miles an hour. It's nuts.
Yeah, he's outstanding. I mean, he went 326 yards, 6 touchdowns. Just an outstanding game. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs will wake up from this dream eventually in this season. There will be a loss. There will be a stumble. There will be something. But what is awesome is that we're seeing that Patrick Mahomes is part of this next wave of quarterbacks of the future, part of the Deshaun Watsons, part of the Carson Wentz's, and Jared Goff. So, for a few years there, but we were struggling. We had Peyton Manning, we had Tom Brady, we had Ben Roethlisberger, and we were struggling for a bit, And now I think we're finally in the another era of great quarterbacks, Joey.
Yeah, I think the future only looks brighter for the NFL. In a week where maybe Deshaun Watson doesn't have his best game and makes just a terrible, terrible play to end the game in Tennessee. I don't know if you saw that, but just one of the worst quarterback decisions you'll ever see. I'm just going to tell you, it was brutal, buddy. So this guy, Deshaun Watson, gets the ball, 15 seconds left on the clock. They don't have any timeouts, but they're in territory. All they have to do is make a quick throw out of bounds, and they're in field goal range, down by 3. Watson hangs onto the ball for 15 seconds and throws it in the middle of the field. Game over. Tennessee comes away with a 3-point lead in just Billy O'Brien and the Texans. Just, I can't even believe, just terrible decisions 2 weeks in a row. I didn't even want to talk about that game, but it came up, and Deshaun Watson, a guy who we thought might be the next great quarterback in the NFL, not having a good week, but Patrick Mahomes, he looks like this guy's going to be the real deal, and Jared Goff continued to have another amazing week as Arizona just got the doors blown right the fuck off of them by the Los Angeles Rams. So
I had that Rams defense in my daily fantasy.
Oh, that must have been a good one for fantasy.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Well, we're talking about young quarterbacks and blowing through a couple games. Andrew Luck gets a win to get his first win back as they beat up on the Redskins and Alex Smith. Good game for Andrew Luck and company. But a quarterback, Johnny, that played out of his goddamn mind yesterday. Best game of his entire career. And I have to tip my cap, Blake Bortles. 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards, 100-plus passer rating. The guy was absolutely perfect against the New England Patriots, and it was almost textbook watching this 4:25 primetime game. Jacksonville jumps out to an early lead, and you think, okay, this is where they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, just like they did last year in the AFC Championship game. They're going to run the ball. They're going to give the Patriots the ball back with too much time and Brady and Gronk are going to do what Brady and Gronk do, but it's almost like Doug Marrone watched the tape and learned from his past mistakes because they just stayed aggressive, and I just didn't. I honestly did not believe Blake Bortles could beat you by being perfect. I didn't think he had the touch, the skill, the wherewithal. I thought he would choke under the pressure, and it's only week 2 at home in a game that the Jacksonville Jaguars treated like a Super Bowl. But you can't play a better football game than Blake Bortles did yesterday, and he outplayed Tom Brady. He outdueled Bill Belichick. It was absolutely infuriating to watch as a Patriots fan, but sometimes you got to tip your cap because he played absolutely perfect.
So it's games like this when we don't watch a lot of Jacksonville games. But for one, I have to point out no Leonard Fournette in this game.
Nope.
So no number one running back option. All you had was Yeldon and Bortles himself running for like the majority of the yards for around 100 yards
They
between
had
the
that
two of them.
Waze kidder. It was a W. The third string running back did a really
Wild,
good job.
but he had 3 touches for 4 yards.
No, I thought he did better than that. Okay.
No, but you know, it's games like this when you look at Blake Bortles and it's like, wow, okay, so there is the likeness to Ben Roethlisberger that everybody said when he was drafted. Everyone's like, okay, well, is this guy going to be a bust? And then you watch a game like that, he's like, okay, yeah, that's Big Ben when he was younger. That's exactly how Ben would tear up teams. So if he can continue, if he can progress, then yeah, you know, he's going to be a very serviceable quarterback. He's going to be a good guy, and Jacksonville's not going to have to go out and get another quarterback. So long as Blake Bortles continues to progress along this route. Great game by them. I was watching the whole game, and I live in a household of Patriots fans, and I am the smartest one of the bunch, reason why I'm on this podcast. But the rest of them are very emotional, very upset. And I was just like, you know, I was expecting the Patriots to lose last week and win this week. They won last week and lost this week. They're 1-1. I was expecting 1-1. I'm okay. I'm a Pats fan, and I mean, it sucks that we lost to the Jags, but we're still 1-1.
Yeah, I was as a we're Patriots fan. It's shocking. I'm wearing a Pats hat for this is our 4th podcast. I've worn this hat 3 times. I'm well aware. Yeah, I was emotionally prepared to lose this game. Unlike you, I thought they would win last week. Just they don't lose at home. New England against a team like that doesn't win in Foxborough did not surprise me at all. That Tennessee or the Texans. I don't know why I'm struggling with the Texans, the name today, but I'm just keep wanting to call them the Titans. The Texans, they don't win in Foxborough, but it's tough to go down to Jacksonville, man. They're a really good team. That defense it's a legit top 3 defense in the NFL. And oh, by the way, it was the hottest kickoff in NFL history. Or not in history, but in like the last
Jacksonville
15
history and New England history.
In like the last 15 years or something. It hadn't been that hot since a game in Arizona with the Packers a bunch of years ago, like 2009. So look, I get it. It was hot. Brady came out post-game, said it wasn't that big of a deal. But the heat doesn't affect quarterbacks as much as it does offensive linemen and linebackers. But it's more about what Jacksonville did, I think. Just Bortles was perfect. And if he can be perfect every week, then Jacksonville will probably go 16-0 win the Super Bowl. But I guarantee you he won't. When the pressure's on in big games, Blake Bortles is going to throw an interception. He's not going to throw a perfect fade route to the back of the end zone. I'm fairly confident in it. But I've seen him do it in week 2, and I saw big dick Nick Foles do it in the Super Bowl last year. So sometimes not great players step up and have big games, and that's what Blake Bortles did. And you're right, Johnny. I thought that he could be the next Big Ben coming out of college, and I don't want to say he's not as smart as Big Ben because I just don't know how smart Big Ben is either. But I just don't think his football IQ is necessarily where it needs to be an elite level quarterback. But there's all this talk at Jacksonville that last year something clicked and he figured it out and he started carrying himself differently. And well, shit, if you play like that every week, you can consider yourself a high-end NFL quarterback because they beat the Patriots, and nobody beats the Patriots. So
yeah,
let's stay in Florida just because it was another hot game in the sun and a quarterback who just swagged out yesterday in the post game, really stole the show for his attire. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Fitzy, the Magic. The guy goes out, throws 4 touchdowns, Deshaun Jackson getting on the board again. Everybody's loving life in Tampa Bay. They start the season 2-0, where without their number one quarterback, a lot of teams might have predicted this team to go 0-2. And then it just seems like everybody's loving him. His teammates are in, and he's stealing Deshaun Jackson's swag post game. And I just, we mentioned it last week, John. I fully expect there to be a quarterback controversy in Tampa Bay when Jameis Winston gets back from his suspension.
Yeah, especially if Fitzpatrick wins the third game and they go 3-0 without Winston. I mean, I get that Fitzpatrick has never really done it with any team, but he's that guy who always causes trouble. He's that Nick Foles type of guy, that Case Keenum type of guy, right? Who's got the ability to step it up to that next level, just can't keep it in gear for an entire season. There's definitely going to be a controversy, but I gotta believe Jameis Winston's got it in him to take that quarterback job back from Fitzpatrick. But like you said in the previous show, that doesn't mean Fitzpatrick won't be starting for another team. That doesn't mean that Tampa Bay doesn't realize what they have there. And we could be seeing this guy carrying another franchise, bringing them out of the depths. Not bringing them into the playoffs, but bringing them out of the depths of where they're at right now. I'm looking at you, Arizona.
Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick's just the captain of mediocrity, right? If you want to be an 8-8 team in the NFL, Ryan Fitzpatrick's your boy. At least that's how it's been for the last handful of years. He was half decent with the Jets for at times. He was half decent with the Bills for times. He's been half decent with every team he's gone to for a period of time. And sometimes he looks really good, and sometimes he looks like he would flunked out of Harvard and makes terrible decisions and throws interceptions and tries to force balls. They're going to have a really tough matchup next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Monday night in primetime at Raymond James Stadium, which I believe that's where the Tampa Bay Bucks play, so it's at home. I have no idea why the Bucks are hosting a Monday night game in primetime. I keep saying I want to see more non-divisional matchups in primetime, but Bucks Steelers isn't really the one that I'm looking for, Johnny.
Especially when the Steelers haven't won.
But I guess they thought it was going to be when they booked it a matchup Jameis versus Ben, a couple good quarterbacks, but you're going to have Fitzy versus Roethlisberger, and gives Le'Veon Bell a little more time to see if he's going to come back from that holdout. A couple more news and notes here, Johnny. I don't have much else written down, but I did quickly want to talk about that game in Carolina against the Falcons. No, sorry, it was in Atlanta. But the Falcons come away with 31-24 win over the Panthers in a divisional matchup. Big game, yada, yada, yada. Matt Ryan looks good. They find a way to get into the end zone, in the red zone, which is new for the Falcons. But I just wanted to quickly talk about that. The dirtiest play of the day, in my opinion, was the hit on Cam Newton, where he just gets absolutely destroyed as he's given himself up as a runner, and in a league that protects quarterbacks at all costs. And I know you want to mention the Clay Matthews incident from the Green Bay game in a bit here, but just a head-to-head contact on a quarterback, something that the league's totally trying to get out of this game. And I just thought it was a completely unnecessary and dirty hit from the Falcons, and does not surprise me at all that it started a good brawl.
I think that if the quarterback gives himself up and you initiate a tackle, that you should be ejected from the game.
Oh, and he was, right? But
no matter what, no matter if it was your first, your second, whatever. I think that if you hit, you don't even hit the quarterback in the head, in my opinion. If you hit the quarterback when he's giving himself up, now if the quarterback gives himself up way too late, then obviously you can't be held accountable for your body's actions because you're already doing something. But if the referee deems you've got enough time and the quarterback's giving himself up and you hit him anyway, that's an egregious breach of the rules. So the guy deserved to be ejected. I hope Cam is okay. You never know. You got to wait like a few days.
The rest of the game. I assume he went into the quiet room and did some concussion protocol, but you never know with the NFL. He probably did some smelling salts and was back on the sideline back in the game at 5 minutes, because he's a star player, but it was just a brutal hit. And the I like, as soft as this league's getting and protecting the quarterbacks, and I know you want, and we can talk about the Clay Matthews hit now if you want, but just it's just, I don't know why I hate seeing things like that, but it makes the game worse, especially when you're going after a star quarterback. And there's just so many bad ones, and I watch so many games where you're watching ducks get thrown and just terrible balls because the league just doesn't have enough good quarterbacks. When you see one of the guys who can actually change the momentum of football games and really be a difference maker in the league get targeted like that, it's just really tough.
Yeah, it definitely, and it makes it worse on the rules, right? Because that makes the NFL want to crack down even
Mm-hmm.
more. So just follow the rules as they are, guys, and they're going to stop getting as tight, or stop getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. You continue to break the rules, and they're just going to make them even more, and then you're going to be playing touch football. So anyway, yeah, moving on to the other hit, and you go from one end of the spectrum where a hit was really bad and was punished properly, the guy was ejected, and we go to another hit that altered the state of a game, gave the was it the Vikings?
Yep.
Yeah, it was the Vikings. Gave the Vikings the opportunity to come back and actually tie that game. Referee called roughing the passer on Clay Matthews, and it was the strangest roughing the passer call I've seen. It looks just like a normal hit.
Mm-hmm.
Clay doesn't. If you haven't seen it, you got to take a look at it. Clay doesn't make contact with the quarterback late. He makes full contact with the quarterback. But the referee's explanation, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because he was asked later what Matthews could have done better. He said, well, he picked the quarterback up and drove his body into the ground. He could have not picked the quarterback up and drove his body into the ground. But that's his job. What's he supposed to do? Just stand there and go boo? So he falls down? Like, I don't get it, man. I really don't.
Yeah, this one is where the NFL's come the other way, right? But we just talked about how they do everything they can to protect quarterbacks, and this is really the Aaron Rodgers rule. This is the rule that the NFL's put in ever since Anthony Barr and the Vikings broke Aaron Rodgers' collarbone last year on a very clean hit, but it was just a hard hit. They drove him into the ground and broke his collarbone. Now the league is cracking down on it. Post game, I heard some of the analysts, they called it burping, is what they said, when you pick up the quarterback like that and you get his feet up, and it's tough. And it was a third down play in overtime where really, and the pass was incomplete. It would have been the game would have been over, and the Pack would have won that game, but they didn't. And it's on Clay Matthews for the second game in a row. He's almost cost his team like this with a bad penalty late. I know it's a very questionable penalty, and it's tough to see, and I hate the call. But Clay Matthews has to be smarter in these situations, just because he did the same thing last week, and it cost Green Bay. It almost cost Green Bay the game against Mitch Trubisky and the Bears on primetime. He gave them another opportunity, and last week it worked out for the Packers. They sacked them on the very next play. But if the rules have changed, and Clay Matthews being one of the premier players in the NFL, and if he's not going to get the breaks, then he has to change the way he's hitting quarterbacks, or he's going to cost the Packers more ball games.
Yeah, I just finished saying it, right? You follow the rules or they're going to make them tighter, right? So I don't like the call, but you have to live with it. It's the referee's interpretation. And Matthews really can't be too mad because you called it the Aaron Rodgers rule, right? And Aaron Rodgers is his QB. So without his QB, then the rule wouldn't exist. So the rule exists to protect guys like his guy, right? So it's interesting. Matthews definitely needs to tighten up his play for sure. You can't be costing your team the game 2 weeks in a row. Well, I mean, he didn't cost him the game last week, but he would have, or could have anyway. So you can't cost your team the game like that. I just need to. Oh man, I'm so sick of seeing the referees throw flags for nothing.
Oh yeah, and I thought, or actually, I've been pleasantly surprised the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, buddy, just because of almost the lack of flags, especially the lack of. I know there's been lots of flags in games, but there hasn't been the leading with your head rule flags. There hasn't been some of these new rules. Like, there has been the new rules that they're emphasizing, but there hasn't been some of these dumb rules that we haven't seen before and don't really get. Like, this is one of the dumb rules where we're seeing these hits on quarterbacks, and they're clean, fine hits, and you're getting flagged for them, and it's funny because you can really see the difference in how quarterbacks are treated when you're watching multiple games, and you see a guy like Ben Roethlisberger getting banged around in the pocket and getting hit, and then you'll watch Matt Stafford get hit in the pocket, and there's flags all over the place, right? Just there's different sizes. They're not as mobile. Just the different type of quarterback, and guys like Newton and Roethlisberger and even Joe Flacco, these bigger quarterbacks, they get abused a lot more, and they don't get the calls the same way, and it's just so inconsistent. That's really the biggest problem in the NFL is it's so inconsistent week to week, and it sucks to see, and it's costing teams games, and I hate the refs, and I think everybody does. So there's just nothing we can do about it. I feel like we're going to be complaining about the stripes until the end of time.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen. You mentioned the leading with your head rule, and before we get out of here, I want to touch on this because I know we both watched this hit. We both watched this game. There was actually a leading with your head rule against Jalen Ramsey in the New England Patriots game. I didn't agree with the call, Joey. I understand he made initial contact with the helmet, but I felt Ramsey did enough to try and alter his body. It to me felt like he realized what was happening and he tried to change himself and he wasn't able to do it enough. I don't agree with that call. And to me, that's just one of the first controversial ones. Now, as I'm glad the Patriots got the call because I'm a Patriots fan.
Yeah,
now, they lost the game, so it didn't really help.
15-yard penalty was the only time they moved up the field.
But I kind of feel for Ramsey there. He was upset at getting that call, and I kind of feel for him there because he did everything he could to alter his body.
Yeah, I kind of saw it. I actually didn't hate the call. I don't know if I was looking at it through beer goggles or not whilst I was watching it live. But I thought it was pretty textbook. He definitely hit him with his head, but that's the problem with football. It's so bang bang. You're gonna hit. I don't know if the NFL understands that the neck is attached to the head, and the head is attached to the shoulders, and it's all connected. And it's really hard when you're running full speed in full equipment to get this area out of the way and get this area into the same spot. It just doesn't work. I just don't know. I don't get it, but whatever. I'll take the penalty. I agree with you. But you could go bang. I feel like there's 15 plays a game where you can call it or not, right? So the officials haven't been, which I like that they're not. They're letting the guys play a little bit more quickly before we get out of here, because that's all I had written down. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, buddy?
That's it. That's all I got.
Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, real good game last night. They show up and really just put a beat down on the Giants. I was not expecting that. I would have lost money if I bet on that game, but I haven't bet on anything since the Super Bowl because I refuse to bet on things now. I lost too much money on the Super Bowl. But tonight, Johnny, we have a NFC matchup: Seahawks versus the Bears in Soldier Field, I guess. A battle of 0-1 teams. Do you think Russell Wilson and the Seahawks can bounce back and take down Mitch Trubisky and the Bears, or do you think Khalil Mack and that revamped defense is going to be enough to shut down this lowly Seahawks offense?
I think that Mack attack is going to show Seattle what they've been showing people for the last 5 years. They're going to show them an ultra scary defense that's going to just sack and sack and sack and sack. And it's going to be a low scoring game. Both teams under 20 points, but I give it to the Bears.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength here, Johnny. I think this is going to be a fugly football game. Don't expect high scoring, lots of field goals. Seeing how the NFL went yesterday, maybe lots of field goal misses. I think the Bears are the closest carbon copy to the Seahawks of 5 years ago that we have in the NFL right now. Elite defense with a young quarterback who's mobile, has a good arm, but hasn't proven it yet. So we'll see if Mitch Trubisky can get there. I'm picking them to beat the Seahawks just because they're at home. If this game was in Seattle, I'd be taking the Seahawks, but we're taking the Bears, let's say 18-15 in a shitty football game. As again, we get another non-divisional Monday night or primetime matchup, which is good, but two bad teams, which is not
boring.
Good. So, I don't know. The NFL just hasn't done a good job here early with their primetime matchups, but it's okay. It's football. I like football. I'll watch it. I'm so happy it's back
tomorrow, buddy.
Hockey's back tomorrow. Yeah, for sure. So let's get the fuck out of here. This was our Thursday or Mondays. I guess we do football more on Mondays. We'll talk hockey on Thursday for sure. Not a ton happened over the weekend. Barkov was just named captain of the Florida Panthers. We'll talk about all that and more on Thursday. Plus, we'll preview the Thursday night football game, and
He's not Canadian, by the way. Barkov. I'm
no.
just letting you know. No,
Another
he's not
guy,
Canadian.
another non-Canadian,
Another Canadian, another captain, not Canadian.
Yeah, he is Finnish, I believe, not Swedish.
Yeah. I just figured I'd throw that out
there. Okay, Johnny. So this was fun. We will do it again on Thursday. For John Lodge, I'm Joey Chapman. This has been the Sports Lodge. Please like, rate, subscribe, review, all that nonsense. Follow us on Twitter. It's all below in the comments. Thank you so much for listening in, and we'll talk Thursday.
Later.